The Democratic platform and what they have to offer is one that says to you, you cannot do it without us, the government. You cannot survive without the government. You cannot go to college without the government. You can't get a loan without the government. You can't buy a house without the government. Without us, you cannot succeed. When you have Americans that are employed, that are making money, that are paying their own bills, that are living what I would refer to as the actual American dream, it hurts the Democratic Party. How do you go out there and campaign against you have a great job and your kids are getting a good education and you're saving for retirement? It's very hard to do when what you're offering is despair and desperation relief. That's why Jesse Jackson, in a minute when he said that, it's an honor to be a food stamp president to Barack Obama when he had so many people on food stamps. They believe that because without having people dependent on them, they lose voters. And they've seen that. And so now they're saying, okay, how do we get new voters to vote for us when an economy is doing well? The easiest way to do it is to import voters who you can then say, I just gave you something. I gave you citizenship. I gave you food stamps. I gave you government aid. Those evil Republicans didn't want you here. They treated you like you were evil people, which, again, as a conservative, I don't blame any person for trying to come to America. I believe that America is the greatest country in the world. I don't blame anyone that's in Venezuela or Honduras or Mexico for wanting to come into America. All I'm asking is to do the same thing that you demand of me when I come visit your country, or if I want to come live in your country. Do it the legal and the responsible way. And what the Democratic Party has said this morning, and this is the chairman saying this, he's saying to the American people, it's an economic imperative to let these people in. We will not survive without them. He also said it's a moral imperative. And again, this false equivalency where his words, dreamers are every bit Americans as my 3 U.S.-born kids. That is not a fact. It's not actual. It's not reality. It's wrong. But when you can grab the 40 and under crowd in this country and get them to believe this and also feel shame for living in a great country or being prideful in the laws that have made this country great, you can change all this in one generation. And the majority of my friends are leaning towards the Democratic Party. They don't like the Republican Party, and it's terrifying.
Let me ask you this, Ben. If you look at what's happening right now, you have the climate change crowd, 80% of Europe buys into it. 80% of France buys into it and think they have to do something. However, once the state starts to impose the taxes that are going to be required, you have riots, and they're starting to spread all over Europe. France is practically a war zone. You have mass immigration over in Europe. When you see this, it's caused all kinds of violence all over, and really the beginnings of a loss of country. You couple that with massive spending, and you see the collapse of Europe. You see the collapse of Venezuela. Marxist principles don't work. You're seeing those things. Yeah. When you put all of these together, are the people who are still saying, no, I'm telling you, socialism will work, and we need mass immigration, we need to open our borders, and we need these high taxes on climate change because it'll be fine? Are they just slipped into some utopian dream world, or do they know this would collapse us?
I think it goes back to that issue of it all sounds great until it actually is implemented. I mean, let's just go back to France. You know, people. I even saw people kind of mocking in the media, you know, that people died over a gasoline tax in France. And the question I say is, well, were these people willing to die over a gas tax? No. The people that died were willing to die over a government that had inflicted decades of policies that put the government ahead of the people. Mm-hmm. That's why 3 people died. It was not because of a simple tax increase. That's not why they died. It wasn't because of diesel tax increase of 16%, which is what the Yellow Vest movement, you know, basically is about. But it's much bigger than that. These people were willing to risk their lives because they lived under a government that put the government first, the citizens second, and they were starting to hurt, and it was hurting the poorest, which, by the way, they sold these policies that it was going to help the poorest the most. But when you start running out of other people's money, when you start having an economy that can't keep up with the demands of the government spending, You then get what we have now seen blow up in France, where you have 3 that are dead, you have 263 plus that are injured, and many more arrested. And now the president's trying to do anything he can to get this back under control. And look at what he also did here. He didn't say, I'm not going to have the tax increase. What he said was, I'll put a 6-month moratorium on it, hoping that the people that got organized, that started rioting, will go back to their lives, and then they can slip it right back in. They have no intention in France or any of these other countries to basically truly change the way they're doing business. What France has said is, okay, we'll freeze this tax hike until you guys focus on something else. We'll freeze it long enough that you protesters will go home, that your yellow vests will somehow disappear in your closet, and then we can go back to doing exactly what we did before. And I say this to not just the people of France, I say it to the people of America. Let's hope the politicians actually listen to the people and not go back to their old ways. I do think they're going to go back to their old ways. But what I will say is this is where we better pay attention and stand up to our government and make it clear that you're taking too much from us. You're spending too much of our money. I mean, I think the biggest issue facing is going to be in my lifetime outside of national security and terrorism is going to be our $1 trillion deficits. At some point, that note, you're going to have to pay it off. The government has record amounts of tax dollars they're bringing in while also spending more. There's never enough money that the government in this country, and I believe in any other country, will ever get in from its citizens that they say we don't need anymore. It will never happen because governments inherently, I believe, are evil in the sense that they always want more for their projects and they don't put the citizens first. And that includes our government.